Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Dharma Talk on Sunday. What's the date today? I don't know.
The 10th, November 10th.
10th? Happy birthday to Hakaran. Is it? I think it's today, isn't it? No, today. So she's somewhere in her 30s, I think. Pardon the throat clearing. Should back off soon. Just haven't had enough coffee yet. Thank you all for joining, for participating in this community. Community is very, I'll give you one more of those, very important. It might not be so comfortable sometimes, but look around you. Not just this room. Look at this community. Go further out. Go as far away as Marshall or Ceresco or maybe Kalamazoo or further and further and further. Look at this state, Michigan. Look at the United States. Doesn't look so comfortable. Things are changing as they always do. Nothing is permanent. Thank you for participating. Thank you for your help. Please continue to help us. Help us with this Community Mindfulness Center. I'm going to talk about this a little bit more directly some point during this talk. Want to put your energy in something? Put it in your community. Very important. Talk title is what?
What you're taking for granted.
What you're taking for granted. Thank you. That's what the question of what you're taking for granted. What take this for granted? You come to the monastery, you're going to walk in and you come into a room where the only reason to be here is to sit down and train your mind. We don't make any money doing this. This is not a business. This is a spiritual path. If you're interested, I'm all about this. If you're not interested, I trust you to do what you need to do with your life. Basically, your life is dependently arisen. You have no choices if you think you have choices. And I'm trying to calm myself down here a little bit because I don't want to start in on a rant, which I've been doing the last year or so. You don't make choices. If you think you do, you're wrong. There, it's that. Smile. That's all you can do is smile. Can you smile? How about you? Yes, me too. Doesn't taste good, does it? That was a one-word talk that Trungpa Rinpoche gave back in the 70s, somewhere, and all he said was smile. He might have even said grow up. I don't remember. Maybe that's probably when I blocked out. So some people, students of mine, people I've never met before, are really upset about what's happened in the country. It's really disappointing. It's scary. Is it? Look around, just look at what's happening. I'm not going to get into too much into the politics, but it is not good what's going to happen. Maybe in my lifetime, but definitely in yours. Not good. There's no way you can stop a landslide. This started before any of us were born. It started centuries and centuries ago. This constant coming up of the incredible passion, aggression, and ignorance, suffering, hate, just out and out hatred for other. It's powerful stuff. And it shows up right in our community, little tiny bits of hatred, sparks flying this way and that way and this way. Blaming somebody for how you feel. If you have an emotion and you're not responsible for it, you'll think somebody caused it. And I'm not saying that they didn't trigger it, but it's your feeling, it's your emotion. You are responsible for this lifetime, not to blame. You also don't get credit for having an IQ of 210. You didn't do that. Just like you're not to blame if you're born in Detroit in 1985 and your mother and father are addicted to crack. It's not your fault, but it's your responsibility. It's the ability to respond to what arises in your mind. Please be responsible for it. How do you do that? I don't know if you can do it with the intellect or with a thought process. I don't know if you can think your way into this where you, oh, I see, I have that figured out now. Now I finally can be responsible. No, this is not philosophy. It's not about some kind of a project where you just do this or do this or do this, and finally you realize your true nature. It's worse than that, and it's better than that. I'm telling you here, and I have no proof. All you have to do is look at it, and you have to do a hell of a lot of looking, a lot of it, and nothing will result from that because results are about relative truth. We take for granted this monastery. We take for granted our car will start. We take for granted that, do we take for granted that you're still going to have some freedom in this country? Not looking so good. There are people who they get rid of their anger, frustration, First Noble Truth, life is suffering, by blaming others or controlling others. If you can get 50 or 60 or 100 people on the plantation to do what you say, then you might have some difficulty, but you at least get to download it on others. I feel terrible. I think I'm going to go beat someone. Maybe this isn't happening today in this country. I don't particularly want to talk about doomsday, but you imagine how the Russians felt in the 1930s when Stalin was starving his people to death. Well, how many million?
30 plus.
30 plus million people. That's according to Timothy Snyder. His book called Bloodlands. Not a good read. Please train your mind. Support your community. Support this community. This is your community. Support. Very easy to turn away from the negativity that's happening. And I'm saying we tend to take for granted the country. We're free, which is, by the way, my father in 1945, March 16th, was killed in Germany. What, protecting this country? I don't know. Should I say thank you for your service? It's frustrating. It's so very frustrating for all of us. The whole politics of the whole thing. And I really don't do a Dharma talk where I'm going into that, but I have so many people, not so much here, a little bit here, but people off and a long distance away that are so terrified by what's happening in the government situation. And what am I going to say? Well, train your mind. That doesn't help too much. But it's important to do that. It's important to take some time out, sit down, and be responsible for your emotions rather than blaming others. And the process of the path leading to that might first of all be taking responsibility for the fact, F-A-C-T, that you are blaming others. Because unless you first see that you're doing that, instead of jumping to, well, I'm not really doing that. I'm not really blaming. I know they're here and they bother me when they're around. You need to be responsible for that. This is the only way you will be able to see the fundamental situation that's happening in your consciousness, which is ego. That part of consciousness that shrinks up into a knot in dislikes and hates and bitches and complaints about others or about yourself. You might turn it on yourself and have a bunch of self-hatred, which ends up in being shame. Never going to get anywhere. I can't seem to deal with this. And it's because of the way I was treated when I was 4 years old. Maybe it was. You can't get away from dependent origination. You are dependent origination. It's very, very difficult. What else you got to do with your life? I will help you much as I can. I'm here to support you, to encourage you to sit still, find some time, socially distance yourself. Monks have been doing that for centuries and centuries, way before the time of the Buddha. People who saw must be something deeper to understand about this life rather than just being a farmer or just being a sheep herder, on and on. In ancient times, there was support for people on the spiritual path. These days, it's a little bit more difficult. It doesn't look very valuable to sit in front of a wall. And what do people often say? You're going to turn into a vegetable. So, what very likely the person doesn't understand how intelligent vegetables are, especially carrots. Very smart. Unity. In our situation, Sangha, the community, a spiritual community where we support each other, bite each other's heads off because we feel like crap and we think someone is acting this way or that way, and therefore we feel bad because of what they're doing or not doing. Difficult. And each person here has their own, you could say, story or autobiography about where they're at, what's happened with their family over the last 2 years, 3 years, 8 years, who caused what, who did what. Would you like me to tell you about all the people I've been married to? And I'm not going to do that, but if I go back and go through this, it's very, very painful stuff. Very painful. I didn't cause it. The people I was married to didn't cause it. Just the causes and conditions got together and created really intense, difficult chemistry. I was very lucky to run into my teacher in 1973, where I could slowly be able to turn that avalanche of personal hatred and emotion and anger inward so I could see what this was. I've been doing this long before I met just about all of you. In fact, all of you. Long before I met you. Did it work? I don't know. I don't know if it did or not. I have nothing to say about that. But what am I here to do? I'm here to encourage you to look within, find out, look within. So don't get your identity from anybody, anything, any situation, any memory. Find out who you are fundamentally. I can tell you in a couple of words who you are, but they're just a couple of concepts. And if you have a lot of intellectual shenanigans going on in your mind, you might be able to take this in and move this around in such a way that it might help you feel better, might help you feel worse, might be confusing, might be illuminating, might be. It's a very simple teaching coming out of the Buddhist tradition in various ways, a few ways, several ways, limited ways, depending on the teaching person. If they're trying to live up to a standard, they won't be able to do it because there is no such thing as the truth. What is it? Consciousness only, just the consciousness, just consciousness. And it's not separate from this, and it's not separate from the space in which this occurs. Those two are not two different things. They just look like it. And this is the very nature of the illusion that deludes us into thinking we're somebody, and that our suffering, our pain, our thought, our emotions, our hopes and fears are real, and they are not. Nor are they unreal. You take any position on anything, you might as well be kicking the can down the road. Anybody ever play kick the can? No? Yes? Did you? You play kick the can?
Kicked everything I could.
We have that in common. I usually use my fist. So, what was it? Talk title again.
What you're taking for granted.
What you're taking for granted. Question. What are you taking for granted? How about your health? Your health pretty good?
Yeah,
Take that for granted. Pretty good help so far. Somebody else want me to pick on them? I'm not trying to pick on you. I'm just saying we don't know what's going to happen next. And the next part is also an illusion. There is no next. Ultimate reality is not about a next. Relative truth, very powerful. Protect this mirror. Protect this building. Protect this way of living your life or looking at your mind so you can see clearly who you are, what this is. It's not about joining Buddhism, not about becoming a monk. But very, very important to for us, especially in, what do they say, this day and age? I don't know. I'm sure where that slogan came from. But in this time, we need to do this together. Very, very important. Community, Sangha. Because other aspects of society are determined to drill, baby, drill. And just exploit the earth, rip it apart. As if there were no, what, tomorrow? Well, there isn't. There isn't one. But the illusion of a tomorrow could be very painful if it shows up in a way where we're all starving to death or burning up. There's some questions, perhaps. Please don't hold back. Yes.
Is there a difference between not liking something and blaming when we see where one might turn into the other?
I think it's really complicated to find out. To respond to your question, I would say yes, there's a difference, but the way those differences show up is you can't really root it out, so you can get some kind of a handle or some kind of a reference point. So, well, now at least I know what's to blame, what's not. I know who caused what. And so just not liking something might be pretty genuine, straightforward. You just don't like it. If you're lining 15 people up and I introduce you to 15 people, or you just meet 15 people without even talking to them, you'll immediately be drawn to some and not so happy with others. That doesn't mean you'll actively start being against that other person unless you're 4 years old. Then you know you're pretty much on the spot. Then you're not. There is no past and future for that consciousness. And more about that.
If you're not liking what someone is doing, is that bordering on some kind of blame, including yourself?
It could be. So it could be. And here's, I've said probably hundreds of times, at least 20 times. It's not about stopping any of that. It's just about being aware of it. And that's the way over time, that part of the consciousness that is the primary misunderstanding, which is belief there is someone and believe there is another person. By just watching that emotion come and go. And that's very hard. It's very challenging, because if we start having negative feelings, then what does the ego say? Well, you shouldn't be feeling that way. Well, you don't have that. You don't deserve this. This is terrible. I'm depressed, or I'm this, or I'm that. We might blame somebody. We might not. We might just be at the mercy of just really heavy, dense, and negative feelings. What am I saying? Just be aware of them. Just eat it. Smell it, taste it, touch it, feel like crap. This is not nihilism. It's just the truth. The first noble, this is why the Buddha, as far as I know, I don't know the guy, 2,500 years ago said life is suffering or dissatisfaction, or however you want to say it. And he was trying to help us, not trying to create some kind of nihilism. Why? We don't like it. Whatever shows up, we don't want that. We want something, even if it's slightly different. Well, this is okay, but I would like a little bit deeper shade of purple. It's a little bit too light. Well, a little kind of differentiation. And this is the way we reinforce the illusion that there's someone who wants that, but doesn't want that. This is a very powerful illusion. And this is why sitting practice of meditation is so powerful. You sit down with yourself, it probably will feel okay for a while, maybe the first 3 months, 3 years, but eventually you are going to have to look at the garbage pit in your mind. You'll have to look at it and not accept it. Don't accept anything. Not reject it. Don't reject anything. and not ignore it. You may have to just see that you are that. The consciousness is not separate from anything. There is nothing to heal. I don't use that word. There's nothing to cure. I don't use that word. There's nothing to fix. I don't use that word. Not that things might not appear that way. You can't just look at a flat tire and say, not really flat. And the tire goes, goes up there and patches itself. But that's probably coming, and somebody will be what? Selling it to you. So you won't have to ever have another flat tire. Relative truth is like that, and that's why it's so seductive. It's very seductive to try to fix things, change things, move things around. And what's being said here from this person is be aware of it. And I'm also letting you know, since I've looked at a little bit of this myself, probably won't be easy. And sometimes it's good to have someone to encourage you, say, you can do this, you can do this. And say it with a kind of confidence that moves you deeply. I was very lucky to have that. Yes, sir.
Geez, I'm bowing. The expressing and not expressing, are those dependently, is their dependent nature different? Is there something better about not expressing as opposed to expressing?
Not at all.
And how do I work with not maintaining without validating?
So if you or me or any of us, or if you're on receive, especially if someone's practiced for a long time, as you have, if you can just do it with the awareness and have a willingness, I don't know of another word that would work other than an openness to whatever shows up, don't do anything with it. Allow yourself, insofar as there is one, to be completely out of balance and at a loss for everything. So it's observing, and if you find yourself spontaneously, you could call it dependent origination, pushing on something or maintaining something, observe, observe, observe. It will, anything you would just observe, you don't grasp it. Anything you just observe, you don't push on it. Passion and aggression, and anything you just continue to observe it. If it's there, you don't chase it, just observe it. Eventually that runs out of the energy that the ego uses to gain, lose, and ignore. So that the ego, that part of the consciousness, starts to run out of steam. So that structure of ego starts to fall apart. Dependent origination, the causes and conditions could get more intense because they're no longer being manipulated or fussed with or agreed with or objected to by that part of consciousness that seems to be a self, or has the illusion of being somebody aligned with a particular body-mind complex, eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, mind. More?
It seems that any expression of contrast is going to be an expression of dependent origination.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, again, is there a way to not validate the expression, and yet the spaciousness allows for anything to express itself?
Just allow the validation. Don't necessarily try not to validate, or don't necessarily try not to maintain. Be aware of the knee-jerk maintenance of ego, trying to maintain this or trying to push that. Very much about awareness rather than any kind of accomplishment. More about it if you have it. Let's keep going.
I'm wondering in that regard, as far as expression goes, and keeping the principal witness, again, it's really the same question about how one can have the principal witness without pointing to something and saying, I have a right to do this, or I'm the final arbiter of this situation because I'm the principal witness.
So principal witness is ground, path, and fruition, as you know. It's the suffering, and then there's the desire, the wish to be clear, to be sane, to understand deeply what this is rather than being at war with anything. So the principal witness is a practice where we just go to the consciousness. And for a while, that is waterlogged by ego. So it's like something that is clear in itself, but it's stuck with opinion, bias, judgment, prejudice, and that has to be looked at. And it's a very sickening feeling to look at that over time more.
Is the looking at it also without locality? Is that also dependent, unreal?
Eventually it starts out as being that, and then it becomes unreal, and then it goes through a process where it becomes that, where it actually comes back and it's just an illusion. You just realize that there never was anything that was unreal, and your life and your death are just dreams that are happening, that who you are can't come to an end because you're just consciousness, just a way of describing it. There's no way you can even find a name for it more.
What is meant by just receive? What is being encouraged to the student?
This receive. So you have all the nerve endings, which are receivers, including the mind. Sometimes we think, but we don't. We receive thoughts. You're receiving my voice, just like, and I'm receiving my voice at the same time you are. There's no longer an interlocutor here. Someone quite a bit more comfortable than it was a few years ago. When I say comfortable, I'm not saying some kind of pleasure thing going on, but no war. There's no concern about consequence, no concern about outcome. Prasanga. Remember that? Prasangika, consequence. There isn't any. Nothing occurs. That's if you're swamped by this illusion, then it looks like you have say-so and you have consequence, and there's blame for this and credit for that. It's completely unreal and emptiness. Go ahead. But that's
Can no say-so show up as appearance?
yes.
Can you say what not receiving is? What is it? If you're saying that somebody is not receiving, how is that recognized or defined?
If this person as a teacher is saying that to someone, I said that, have I ever accused you of not receiving? I like that. Probably. Have I ever accused you of that?
Think so.
So we have not probably, and I think so. How about you?
Yes.
Yeah. I wonder why you were able to say it so definitely, and they're saying it kind of. Any idea?
I would not dare to speculate.
Okay, good idea. So receive until there's no receiver and there's nothing to receive. It's a path, and it's a path of liberation. And it starts to come apart towards the end where we keep looking for footsteps, footprints, something there. There isn't anything. We keep going into emptiness. With no support, no consequence. Nothing happens. Nothing occurs. It gets better. It gets worse. It gets worse for ego. Ego is devastated by this practice, this process. But let's go back into your question if you'd like.
Just to return to it, it's not clear what the lack of receiving is when it seems that there's so much more coming in than ever before.
Okay, I can say it in a couple of words. I would like you to contemplate it for a while, then ask me another question. Maybe not in this talk, but what you just described is the clarity. What's the difference? If that is the clarity,
I understand.
good.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Hard to get there. I can't do that by myself, even though there isn't one. You can't get there by yourself, even though there isn't one. But we can do this together. That's why Sangha is so important. Community is so important. Don't keep your distance from Sangha. And also don't chase them. Be very respectful of other people's confusion, including your own. Kayun.
Kayun bowing. That's actually the area I'm curious about. I think in the wake of the election results, a lot of perhaps well-meaning left-leaning people are like, we've got to go into those red areas and listen and change hearts and minds. And that seems a little fishy to me, but at the same time, I know that you've been advocating or describing that CCC is really important, not just in the Sangha, but in the country as a whole. So I'm wondering, how do we CCC with people that we don't agree with? We might not even ever meet any of them without trying to meddle. Bowing.
So I don't have a protocol or a algorithm for that, but I can say that the very best thing you can do is to get to know yourself. Don't take your own unexamined aggression or resentment or craziness spinning in your own mind that you've not been able to be responsible for. If you can be responsible for that, then you're not afraid of your own anger. You don't care if you get mad. Whereas people who are the ones you're talking about are very concerned about controlling their anger and living up to some kind of ideal of being open-minded with everybody and talking to the enemy and all of that. Not interested in that. That being said, I'm very interested in listening to what people have to say. What I'm doing here, I want to hear what you have to say. But train your mind so you can see, so you can be responsible for the negativity, the positivity, and the neutrality that shows up in the mind that is basically in the service of your self-centeredness. I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying probably if there's hope and fear going on in your mind, then you still think you are a separate being from everyone else. So more. Okay.
Ian Bowing. So might we be better off directing that kind of helping energy into our own immediate community rather than rushing out of bounds, Bowing?
Oh, that's kind of what I've been saying. Sangha, talking to other people, interacting with other people who are studying the Dharma and talking to them. And as we do here in this community, we have our difficulties. Very difficult to live in community, especially a community that where everybody is working on training their minds to see more clearly. When you start to do that, you start to run into all the crap you've been covering up since you were 3 years old, 1,500 years ago. It's very, very complicated. Consciousness does not come to an end. That the things that arise in consciousness go away. It's called a human form, a raccoon, a cloud, a thought, a memory. All of that terminates eventually. There are no storage buildings for that. Even the Alaya Vijnana does not store that by way of practicality or making use of it. It stores it by way of what? Dependent origination. Dependent origination, the illusion of otherness continues to work in that area. That's why it's been said, if you realize your true nature, there's a turning around at the basis. It means that the storehouse it's not separate from anything. So therefore it can't find the chemistry that it needs to continue to be a separate being with desires, hopes, wishes, demands. Thanks. More, Kayun?
Kayun Bowing. I guess what I've also noticed about myself is how much I hate my immediate family, many of whom voted for Trump, who I also hate. And yet I don't mind hating them, but I also don't blame them. But I do feel some kind of pressure to even reach out to family members who, for whatever reason, voted for this person whose policies in all likelihood could negatively affect me as a gay person or my partner's family who are Mexicans and so on.
Or the climate. I mean, this
Right.
drill baby drill thing is not a particularly good idea to do, but we knew that, and we've been listening to this for a long time. But the chemistry of the whole world, it's a landslide. You know, I use that because I'm saying you can't just interrupt a landslide and just stop it because you don't care for what it's doing. So, but what you can do is you can work with going to the prison. Hope they let you out. Don't tell them all the bad things you've done. Okay. Thank you for doing that. Thank you for helping those people. So she's going in to teach meditation in a one of the Michigan Department of Corrections facilities, which he's been doing for a while. That's UDOW. So what can you do? You can look at your own mind. Anytime any one of us, if you spend 15, 20 minutes, an hour by yourself in a room, you'll notice that even though you've distanced yourself from family members, whether they're whoever they voted for, or you still have your own mind stream, you still have your own causes and conditions. You might be able to get a little bit of distance from it, but basically it starts to show up, especially if you're a meditator, which most of you are, and you sit down, you deliberately watch the movement of the mind come and go, come and go. And it takes a while to not kind of crank things up and try to go in and focus on certain things, or maybe get rid of certain things, or stop the negativity, manipulate it in some way. It takes a great deal of time. This is why the meditation practice I teach, having practiced a few others, is sit down, hold still, watch the movement, shikantaza. So this way, the very chemistry that anyone is dealing with, you get to see that particular area of the mind that you're closing off or you're pushing, because wherever the stress is going to show up if you're just looking at the space of the mind. Whatever comes and goes in the mind, you'll be able to see it. And in this way, and Trungpa Rinpoche said in a very homely kind of way, so you can make friends with yourself. If this negativity in your mind that is painful, difficult, challenging, and you can actually take care of yourself, like seeing aspects of your mind are like a small child. You can do that. Yes.
Is Nancy Bowie, is curiosity a valuable tool in exploring the situation when we find that we're blaming, or when we are blaming others of blaming?
Very much so. Curiosity and meditation practice is a kind of exercising our curiosity. We're going to sit down and we're going to hold still. All our senses are open, and our attitude is, I'm just going to look at this. I'm just going to receive it. Just going to be aware of it. And sometimes we can be flooded by anything from just falling asleep, or to maybe just hashing over a conversation we had with someone 3 days ago and trying to understand what they said, or why didn't they listen to me, or why couldn't I listen to them, and all of the various stories that come up. And so there could be a lot of curiosity there. And quite often the curiosity from the ego point of view is about who caused it, who's to blame. And so, and the Buddhist teaching, if you looked at them at all, says that all dharmas, or anything that shows up, is without cause. Anything that shows up, and you go, what, doesn't it look like everything is causing everything else? It's just such an incredible illusion that we are deluded by. We're deluded into fighting with some things and agreeing with others. So yes, I'd say curiosity is powerful. Eugene.
I have a question. I'm asking for the clarification of your response to Chezan. Did you say that there is no difference between expressing and not expressing negativity if the principal witness is there? Bowing.
There's a differentiation there, because that's why the illusion works so well to do this, because there's differentiation everywhere. But if there's nobody home, then we just see the causes and conditions coming, it's like everything is like a rainstorm or like hail. You don't blame the clouds. Of course it's not, but there's another person involved. It's so easy to blame them. So, but fundamentally, no, there's no difference. Fundamentally, yes. Go ahead, please.
So when you mean fundamentally is where nothing happens.
It's an illusion. Yes. Pardon the laughing. I don't mean to be mocking anyone. Yes, sir.
What is supporting Sangha when blame is showing up?
Being aware of the blame. Just be aware of it. We'll try to get rid of it by credentializing it, saying, I have a right to be blaming. Just feel that there's a finger pointing coming right out of your heart onto someone else. This stops you from looking here. As soon as even if the person has looked at you or walked by you in the hallway and was unfriendly, no matter what happens. No matter what happens, if you do anything with it, positive, negative, or neutral. It's a powerful understanding. And from the point of view of ego, if you want to call that a point of view, it's humiliating. It's humiliating because then we realize we've missed our chance to really see what this is fundamentally with our heart, not the blood pumping area, but the consciousness that shows up as this centrality. Ramana Maharshi pointed here two fingers to the right of center. Physical heart's of course over here, but he said, here's the spiritual heart. Is it there? I don't know. I have no idea. I never talked to him about it. So it's not about stopping the blame or shouldn't blame anybody. So it needs to be done with awareness. That's why it's so hard, because if we're using awareness, we're not really getting any results from anything. Might not even be any progress, even though the Buddha Dharma has different ways of referring to, like the 10 bhumis or something, stages on the path. Some teachers teach that way.
Susan Bowing, is any consideration of expressing that blame a step removed from just looking at it?
So we can't set up a formula here. There may need to be some kind of pushing or finger pointing in that area in order for you to get more clarity around it. This is why it's so necessary to trust yourself. This does not give you the credential to be mean to someone or disrespectful to someone. You have to do it with awareness. If there's a lot of sitting practice going on, there's more of a possibility that there's an openness happening that is not under the auspices of the self-centeredness, the ego, or the narcissism of consciousness that is protecting something that's not even threatened. Who you are can't be threatened. Your body can be threatened, but you're not your body. Don't believe anything I'm saying. Consider it not about believing anything more.
Susan Bowing, this isn't totally clear, but when you say no outcome, how does that relate to not including or?
No outcome is a relative way of talking about fruition. And including, not including is path situation. There has to be some kind of a path. So we get to the wall, we get to the cushion, we return to chant the sutras, we study the Dharma, we interact as community members. You're a fully ordained monk, so you return to vows that you received years ago. And they're just words and pieces of cloth and so on, but there's some kind of a reference point. So because this path gets more and more without guidelines, it's like Trungpa Rinpoche said, the path of the Vajrayana is like going up a steep mountain with no guardrails, dangerous. And when Kobun Chino Roshi was asked, when he heard that, I said, so Kobun, what would you have to say about Zen? He says, you probably heard this before, Zen starts at the top of the mountain and goes up. So quite the sense of humor. A little bit of sarcasm there. Yes, turn that person's megaphone off. Yes, sir.
Shoto Bowing, are there multiple principal witnesses? Bowing.
Well, it seems like there would be. You're saying, if I'm saying to you or to Junchu, and you're talking about your conflict with this or that, should I do this or that? And I might say, using that standard teaching of the two, keep the principal witness. You can't really say that to someone who is completely embroiled in their ego, their self-centeredness and being right, and everyone else is wrong, but someone has studied the Buddha's Dharma and is seeing that the ego, or the seventh consciousness, that klesha part of the mind, confused, paranoid part of the mind, is not real. It's an invention based on fear of something, a kind of xenophobia or whatever. So, so it's a way of using that more.
Shoto Bowing, how is that different than You brought up this phrase from a student, I see things differently. Vowing.
I'm not sure. Oh, that's because that's an opinion. And that opinion is protecting someone because they've been threatened by something. Much difference between keep the principal witness and having an opinion. Keeping the principal witness, there's no reference point. There's just consciousness. This moves, you just see it move. That's the witness. But if this is moving and there's a story behind it, Sokuzan is moving this because he's trying to teach us something about the nature of clocks going backwards. Am I elaborating a little bit? Maybe, but it's like that. It's the chemistry of ego gets right in there, slides in, slithers in like a snake into the thing and fluffs up that part of the story that makes it convincing. And this is why pride works in ego. If I weren't full of pride myself, I wouldn't be able to teach this. I know what it is. And I recognize it immediately when I see it in someone else. And I see it in you. And I want you to see it in you. And I would say, don't believe in anything I say, but you could consider it and you could spend time facing the wall. Long after this, you're a young man, long after this is gone. Don't ever give up. Continue. Find out who you are. Don't get your identity from me or from your own consciousness or from anything. Because your own consciousness is not your own. That's ego. Better than that? It's worse than that. It's devastating ego. More.
Shuttle bowing. What would the secondary witness be? Like of the two, there's a principal. What's the other witness?
The person they're talking to could be your teacher. Only you will know. Only you will know. When I say you, I'm saying the consciousness is showing up in this human form. Only you will know. If you can use the teacher as a mirror so you can get a look at yourself. If it's a true teacher, someone who's teaching out of what they're looking at, the true teacher isn't a wonderful person that everybody admires and can't wait to go and study under. Not necessarily. They might only have one student.
Shadow bowing. Can those two witnesses be something that's not? I guess I'm asking, is the second witness necessarily somebody else?
Not if you're schizophrenic. Sorry, bad joke. You weren't laughing at it, so it wasn't that funny. What is it you want to know? Maybe I can help you from that direction.
Shadow bowing. That phrase in the morning chants, the host within the host.
Yes.
It seems like that principal and secondary witness can show up completely on our own. And I'm wondering if we can be confused in our own consciousness about what the principal witness is, and we're actually putting it on some secondary situation.
How would you respond to that?
Probably.
Huh?
Probably.
You would agree with it?
Well, it seems that you may take your
Excuse me.
thought patterns and ascribe principal witness to the elaboration. So it seems like that's possible that could happen.
Can't say any better than that.
Thank you.
Welcome. Yes, sir.
She is unbowing. Can a student disagree with the teacher?
Of course. I disagreed with both of my teachers strongly.
How does that show up? Maintaining the principal witness, or when relatively I'm not seeing what you're seeing, the book is not meant to be used that way, or is that seeing things different than the teacher?
It's such a labyrinth of otherness. If I were to talk about the way I disagreed with Trungpa, I also got tremendous amount of help from him. I can't even express it. I would not be alive. I've heard me say that before. I would have ended this because I hated this so much. So he helped me work with that. But I disagreed with a lot of the things he did. I did not agree at all with the Dorje Kasang, the Vajragard. I thought the military thing in a Buddhist situation was not a good idea. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted, something Colvin said was get your own authority.
He did.
I'm wondering about how to do that without it being like a premature
Mhm.
sort of authority. How does one get one authority when no matter what, the teacher may just not go along with that?
The teacher is depending on who you are, If you're a student, the teacher is, if they're your teacher, and you give them the benefit of the doubt, maybe even trust them, then you have to receive whatever they're doing as a teaching. And the important thing about get your own authority doesn't mean that it's you, that you're going to decide stuff. It's you're going to have to realize there is no authority. This is a deep understanding of dependent origination, to see that there never was a singularity called, even though there's a body mind over here with the heart beating so far, and there's one over there, and I'm looking at you, you're looking at me, and this illusion is a powerful situation that looks true, but I don't see someone else. I don't see another person. I see different kinds of activity. I see different kinds of confusion, but I don't see other people. I also don't see some kind of a highfalutin romantic emptiness, we're all one kind of thing either. So getting your own authority is seeing that there is no such thing as an authority. So therefore, if you're no longer making decisions and evaluating anything, that doesn't mean you don't mistake a window for a door, try to walk through it. Isn't that you might be even more clear on the relative truth, because you're no longer projecting onto it. You know this is a door. You know that's a window. So the relative structure is very clear to you. You know where to place your feet as you go up the stairs. Am I getting closer to what you're?
If
Yes, go ahead.
if just functioning is the case, can we still feel hurt or disappointed?
Yeah. When we say, the only thing I would take exception to, that there's no we, the hurt and I could give an example. Just yesterday, I go to the restroom. I don't want to make it another poop story, but why not? What the hell? You got to use the material you're given. I go in there because it's an emergency, and Sokuzan is supposed to give his Dharma Talk next, and I very much want to be here when he starts it. So I can't remember what all the chemistry is there, other than I came in here and then I went over and sat down, and I get Sokuzan irritates me a lot, don't you? So anyway, I get in here. I don't think you were here. You weren't here this in the afternoon. So anyway, I came in, and how did that happen? Let's see. I think I'm going to be able to remember enough of it. I came in, and then I said, I think did I ask you or somebody where's Sokuzan, and did you say he was upstairs, or who was it?
I
Somebody-
don't know who said it was.
Well, I didn't know, and so I start to get mad because I really don't care how I feel, so I get to get mad. You follow me a little bit? I mean, just a little bit, please. Give me a break here. I'm not pretending to be enlightened. I'm not pretending to live up to your idea of what an enlightened master would be like. I'm worse than that. I only have one intention. Sitting here on this chair is to foster, encourage, point to your true nature, your awakening. That's why I'm here. If you see it otherwise, then get the hell out of here. I mean it. I may be disappointed. I may think I have several people who have left, and I'm just disappointing. I thought we were doing pretty well for 7, 8, 9 years, and all of a sudden they get mad at me and they don't like what I'm doing. I'm not acting a certain way. So anyway, I get mad at Sokuzan because Sokuzan, if you don't mind me saying a few things about him again, you don't mind? Okay. He likes to kind of hide out, and that's not wrong. We don't know what Sokuzan's going through. I don't know what it's like to be him. I don't know what it's like to be Mozuku. I don't know what it's like to be Unyo, who has all kinds of difficulty, as does Sokuzan or Hondo, Junchu, Yinlong. We all have all kinds of difficulty that no one else is sharing any of that, but we're perplexed by it. Like, why are they functioning that way? Well, because they're who they are. I happen to be able to see that. When I meet somebody, I can see their crap pretty damn clearly. I may never say it. You may never know how deeply I'm looking into your bologna sandwiches because I don't have permission from you. If I don't have permission, I'm very respectful of your, shall we call it confusion? I'm very respectful of that. I can't help anybody if I'm trying to manipulate somebody, change them, or make them act a different way or be someone else. So it's going to get very uncomfortable to be very close to me, probably, unless you have the wish to see your true nature. Anyway, I run upstairs, which usually you see me get help getting up for some reason, because it's all an act. You know, I'm not really helpless, so I don't need help getting up. So I jump up like a frog, run upstairs, and where is he? Well, he's coming out of the bathroom. He had to go to the bathroom too. So, and then the whole thing just stops. You were there. What happened?
Seemed like nothing happened particularly, like
Nothing.
it was just back to normal.
Yeah, there wasn't nothing changed. No. Do you follow what I'm saying here?
I'm following, yes.
Good, thank you. Do you follow it? A little bit?
A little bit.
So all I'm saying is, it doesn't matter how you feel, my friends. Stop fighting with your emotions, your feelings. This doesn't validate. Doesn't mean you can go and kick the neighbor's dog because it's barking. I'm not giving you permission. I don't need to give you permission, but you could see that dependent origination shows up. And if in this situation, I know I have all kinds of difficulty even being a living being, but I'm no longer at war with it. I'm no longer at peace with it. I no longer take any position on it. I just function as things come. When I say I got my own authority, I didn't get anything. I just stopped trying to be somebody. Probably doesn't look like it. It probably looks like I'm whatever. You can project on me all you want. My motivation is to help you. If that's helpful, then that's what I'm here to do. I came back down. We laughed about, we could have just gone to the bathroom together. We didn't. We were lacking in teamwork there. So we came back down. He went and gave his talk, and I was here for the whole talk because I was projecting onto him that wanting to go upstairs, he's gonna, because I saw he was on Zoom, right? Yeah, probably because you're trying to keep track of what's going on down here. No,
Closed my computer and it just didn't end the connection.
so that's what's the blame. I can end right now, or I can take a question. Go ahead.
Dr. Warren, how are you able to function in a situation without going to correct or incorrect?
By going to correct or incorrect. I'm not concerned about how this shows up. My only intention is to help you see your true nature. That's why there's a monastery. That's why both Chazan and you came here many, many years ago saying, where do I go to become a monk? I said, how about right here? You remember that? Right? No, I'm telling it wrong again. Okay, tell what actually happened?
I was gonna leave after a year. I came here with the intention to leave after 1 year.
That's even better. You stayed. I tricked him into staying. I know, yeah, you were very suspicious of me for a long time. Are you still suspicious? Yeah. How about you? What the hell are you doing here? You have a question? No, yes.
Kabali, I have a couple of questions from YouTube.
I'll take those, and then since we're getting pretty late, I'll take questions there, and I'll take one more from either the screen or in the Zendo, and then we'll close. So I won't keep anybody any longer. Go ahead, sir.
Kabali. Martine in Latvia asks, why does ego demand space and emptiness found?
The basic situation is fear of not having what it wants, that person, fear, loss, fear of losing, fear of being disrespected, fear of the self-centeredness, just simply put. And it goes to passion, aggression, and ignorance, pushing, pulling, or shutting down in order to create the illusion that you have some kind of control, or that it's confirmed you have no control over anything. So kind of the loss mentality or the shame feeling. Another one?
Milka bowing. Question from Azar Nush in Croatia.
Okay.
Hi there. I want to know if the path of illumination is in contradiction with the path of survival.
So, in a sense, I think so. There's a survival. I mean, animals are trying to survive. They have a different kind of dynamic. Human beings have a because of the nature of consciousness with a deer or a moose or a wolf, different kind of thing that's happening in that biology. With a human being, just consciousness is more not better, but just functioning in a way that there's some kind of understanding that goes beyond that looks at the illusion that seems to be a future, the illusion that seems to be a past, and the grip that we have on the present moment. So it's just so there's definitely a differentiation there, but it's not about better or worse.
Milka bowing. Zanush also asks, Mr. Sokuzan said in one of his videos that judgment threatens the mirror, but without judgment, how can I survive?
It's just about being aware of judgment. You don't have to get rid of it. It's an amazing understanding to realize that you can actually be all the chemistry that's arising. You don't have to be somebody else. It's a different understanding that some teachers teach differently. To talk about correcting or being better, or obeying the precepts. My teacher, Koban Chino Roshi, said, observe precepts, you don't obey them. I said, you don't obey. He said, you just observe. Yes, sir.
Shadow bowing. To use the example you just brought up with me a few minutes ago, that you see my pride, and I feel like conceptually I can see that. I could describe what it looks like my pride is. What is it to see pride with just the awareness?
You just see it's a fabrication that has no substance other than its structure and relative truth. Relatively, it's there, but it's from the point of view of ultimate reality, it's unreal. So therefore, you don't have to get rid of it. You don't have to validate it or justify it. You're just full of yourself. I couldn't teach if I somehow gotten rid of my pride. I couldn't sit up here and I'd be too full of pride. I'd be too full of being judged by you. You're thinking, seeing me have a fit or something, which I occasionally have fits. No, I'm not going to have one right now. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing is what you're talking about there beyond being able to see relatively how it comes together and falls apart.
Yes, the seeing part is still path. When there's nothing left to see, then you are not a bragging point. You are dependent origination. You are the things you've been endeavoring to point to. You are those. You are that. You are the hand that's moving. You are the kotsu. You are the sound. You're not separate from anything. You're separated, but you're fundamentally not separate. And that's why the confidence that you have is unconditional. It's not based on looking good or not losing your temper or being a really kind, loving old man or young man. Go ahead.
Shadow bowing is seeing the pride fundamentally is the path to that, continuing to watch pride relatively.
That's path. Eventually you won't look at anything. There isn't anything else. You can't look, as it's been said. There's what's the old image? There might be another one. I can't see itself. There's another. You remember another one besides that? Where you can't really, if it really is true that nothing is separate, then you can't see anything, because you would always be looking at nothing. More? Is there a final one on Zoom? Especially somebody. So let's start out and see if there's anyone who has not asked a question, and then if there isn't anyone, then we'll go to Kayun or Jishin? Anyone? Okay, Jishin, go ahead.
Jishin bowing. Can expressing our negative projections on teacher hurt the teacher? Bowing.
You mean like yelling at the teacher and saying, you're full of it, I can't stand you anymore, or possibly saying, teacher, I think you got that wrong. It wasn't that wasn't the teacher who said this, it said someone other teacher, and correcting them. Give me an idea, a little bit of an example so I know where you're going. And then I can get mad at you.
I really don't want to be specific.
I bet you don't. He's not going to be specific, I guess. Okay, then I would say no. You can't really hurt the teacher. But you might hurt your own path by doing that. It's possible. Can you fundamentally hurt it? Probably not. Just make it more lumpy. Go ahead, Kayun.
I just had one more question, sorry. Am I hurting my own heart when
No. You don't even have to finish the question.
Thank you.
No, you're not hurting your own heart. Can't hurt that. I mean, your physical heart maybe, but just watch your diet.
Kayan,
Go ahead, Kayun.
what's the difference between blame and discriminating awareness? Bowing.
Very good. Discriminating awareness sees differences. It sees that there's something here and there's nothing over here. So you see the differences, you see the contrast between things. But blame is to impute some kind of causation to this. This is causing that. And did it cause that? Yes, it did cause it, but it's relative activity that is happening in dependent origination. So we single out this caused that so that we have the illusion that we are in control of this situation when really there isn't anyone. So the imputation, if you can find out what caused that, that's what our whole legal system is based on, right and wrong, and on someone being smart enough to know how to take that in such a way and turn it so that you can get a conviction because you have more understanding or more clarity or a stronger ability to manipulate the laws. It's just a way of talking about it. It's kind of like someone who's extremely creative, someone who makes a movie can create a powerful illusion that is real. We get quite magnetized by movies that are take that illusion and make it so powerful that we're entertained by it. It's convincing. We know it's a movie, but it's so convincing. Kayun.
Kayan bowing. Thank you. That's helpful. I feel that one's capacity to tell the difference between A and B sometimes gets ghettoized as judging or being a judgmental, discriminatory person. That's why I was asking.
Certainly, I mean, all of that's possible. The thing that I would want to say is just in this particular talk is don't take the community for granted, don't take the country for granted, don't take your own consciousness for granted. Just train your mind to see clearly. Get your authority from your consciousness, not from your ego necessarily, or from this person. Find out who you are. So thank you so much for joining and for your time. Appreciate it.
May the merit of this penetrate into all places, so that we and every sentient being together can realize the Buddha's way. Jiho san shi shifu shi son bu sa hoko sa loko hoja. The 10 directions, the 3 times, all Buddhas, all venerable ones, Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, the great Prajna Paramita. O Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the 10 directions and the 3 times, please hear us. Please come down out of the light and protect Sokukoji Buddhist Temple Monastery, our Sangha, families, friends, and visitors. Heal everyone who is unhappy, sick, or suffering, and fill them with light.
Thank you, Sokuzan.